What up YouTube? Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Life of Freedom YouTube channel. And on today's video, we're talking about security in El Salvador. So my recent trip to El Salvador, basically, I went back having no idea what to do. This is the first time since I was the age of 1 I was adopted. I actually went back to El Salvador. So I did a lot of research beforehand. And then I basically showed up. I didn't know anyone. I had to navigate around. I did Airbnbs, have a video on that in El Salvador. I took Ubers. I had to get around. I hired taxis. I didn't speak very much Spanish, and no one there spoke English. So I basically got around and I managed to stay safe at the same time. So what I want to do with this video is I want to share with you some of the realizations I had along the way, some of the also stuff that I recommend if you are traveling there, if you want to stay safe, and some of the tangible things that you can do to keep yourself safe when you're traveling there, because it is such a beautiful country. You know, when I first was talking about El Salvador, I made this video when I did my 23andMe test. So I learned that I was half Hispanic, Latino, and half European, which kind of plays into the history of El Salvador. But when I was talking about, you know, maybe one day going back to the country, I'd have to hire bodyguards and stuff, the entire YouTube community was up in arms, furious for me just talking about the country in that way. So I decided to actually go back to the country and see for myself. And while it's true that, you know, outside, literally standing outside of a convenience store, it's very frequent that people have things like a shotgun, have things like machine guns. I've seen people with machetes, soldiers there that are carrying openly weapons in order to just intimidate people. You know, obviously the people you don't want to be in contact with anyway, you know, whether it's like gang members or other people that just mean you harm. It's a little bit scary. So one of the first things that I want to share with you when it comes to El Salvador and security is that you can think of the country as sort of a large metropolitan area like New York City. So New York City, you know, obviously not the actual demographics, but New York City, there are good sections and not so good sections. For example, there are certain sections of the Bronx that I have no interest in going to. At the same time, there are great sections like here in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. You're going into Manhattan, there are great sections. There are also not so safe sections at night. It's very important to be aware that when you're going to a city, you have to judge the city based on the individual areas within that city. And El Salvador is the same way. There are not so safe sections, not so safe towns within El Salvador. The same thing goes true within San Salvador, within the actual city. There are not so great sections, and there are also sections where if you stay there like me, you'll probably be fine as long as you're not dumb. You know, as long as when you're going out at night, you take a taxi, you'll probably be fine. So it's very similar, and so you have to think of it in that way. So upon hearing that, what you should be thinking is, okay, let's write down, or what I did, let's narrow down the sections that I don't want to go to, that I want to steer clear of, and the sections that are a little bit more okay if you are a tourist. You know, the sections like going to the beaching town, going to the surfing town in El Salvador, which is in the Libertad district, El Tunco. That was a very safe area, very well guarded. I never had any issues there. I was also out there late at night, and it was completely fine. I also, in my travels, went to Santa Ana. There are also not so great sections of that city, but there are also very great sections of it. I also went to Suchitoto. I then went to La Reina, Chalatenango, which is where I actually met my birth mother. I went to San Salvador. So the first thing you want to do when it comes to security is to write down the areas that you're going to stay clear of within San Salvador and also within the country as a whole, and also the areas that you verified with other travelers that are safe to go to. That's the first security tip that I have for you when you're traveling to the country. Now, the second is to learn Spanish. Learn Spanish. Learn Spanish. I mean, I suck at, my Spanish is not that great. I'm just being honest here. It's not that good. People are always like, oh, you should be speaking Spanish better. And it's like, nah, bro, like I just was raised by Americans. Like I'm trying to learn Spanish as I go. But you have to understand that going to El Salvador, literally, I think I only met 1 or 2 people that spoke any English that were from the, you know, Salvadorian background. You know, I met obviously other foreigners that were traveling that spoke English, but from comes actually the Salvadorians that I met there, only 1 or 2 of them actually spoke English, and it was more so for business purposes, like the tour guide, the tour company that I hired, or when I was talking with people that ran my Airbnbs, they obviously had to speak English, even if it wasn't, you know, necessarily perfect. But aside from that, literally no one spoke English. They only understood Spanish. So just from a security's perspective, you should at least have a conversational level of Spanish at least know how to listen for certain key terms in Spanish, to be able to assess the situation. You can obviously vibe off of things like body language, etc. But I remember one time I was walking down the beach in El Tunco, and I was about to go into this restricted area, and I didn't know it. And this guard, looking very stern, said something to me that I didn't understand in Spanish, but just reading his body language, I could tell he was angry with me, and he didn't want me to enter that area. So I was able to say, no hable mucho español, lo siento, saying where I'm from, and then he was completely fine with it and he let me go. But had I not known a little bit of Spanish, I might not be able to get out of situations like that as easily. So learn a little bit of Spanish before going to El Salvador. My third tip for you, and this is most important if you don't have any kind of connections in El Salvador, like you're not going back to maybe visit your family, you're just kind of going there for tourist reasons, or you're going there to enjoy the nice, wonderful beaches or the cool volcanoes or the rainforest and nature. You're going there more for enjoyment. My tip for you is to make connections along the way, because that way you'll be able to build up a sort of a mini group of people who know you, and you can also ask people questions. So like when I was going to my Airbnbs, I would make a habit of talking with the host and saying, hey, do you recommend a particular person or a particular taxi company? Or hey, do you have any advice on places I should stay clear in this area, or fun things to do, or things that are safe, or things not to do? I would just keep talking and basically asking the same questions as I travel through the country, and in that way I get a different perspective from people that were in Santa Ana, and they were telling me like, oh yeah, you don't want to go to these areas, but these areas are fine, or you should go in groups, like we're going to do a tour group here, and we're going to go to this waterfall if you want to come. The more that you're willing to talk with people and form some connections as you're going throughout your travels, it doesn't have to be super intense, but just making some small chat, making some connections, getting their thoughts on maybe some of the stuff that you have planned for your trip, that's going to make sure that you stay safe while you're in the country. My next tip for you, and I think this is the fourth tip, is to don't be stupid. Like, don't be dumb. El Salvador does not have the same level of tourist infrastructure as other countries. You don't want to just expect that you can walk down the road safely when there's no one there and it's going to be completely fine. Like, have your wits about you. Always don't be listening to music. Don't be always tuned into your phone. If you're going to an area where there aren't a lot of people there, be aware of that, or at least be aware of the body language of the people around you. We talked about that one guard when I was walking down the beach. I was about to go into an area that I'm not supposed to. I just read his body language and facial expressions, and I could instantly tell that this is not a place that I want to go, that this is a restricted area. But there were other situations like that where just reading the body language of people, getting a sense of the emotion that they're expressing, you can very clearly see like these people are guarded, or these people are looking at me, or maybe I'm not supposed to be here. Like, just be aware of your surroundings, be aware of the body language of people around you. Don't tune out and just expect that you can walk on autopilot. Always be aware of your surroundings. Now, in my travels, I did hire a tour company. I used Airbnbs, which is a little bit different. People are like, oh, I didn't even know Airbnb was in El Salvador. I also used Ubers when I went out at night. So people were like, wow, they were really like surprised. Like, a lot of people will stay in hotels, or they use traditional taxi companies. And I think there's just almost this fear when you're going to a country that you don't know anything about of being scammed or being overcharged if you're renting a car or something like that. So my next security tip, I would say almost the final one here, is that if you're going to be hiring service providers, or going to be doing things like renting a car, just don't be stupid. Go on TripAdvisor, look at some of the other reviews out there, be aware of some of the things that could happen. Maybe they're overcharging you, or this company has a reputation for this or that. So I was really lucky to get in on great Airbnbs that had good reviews, so I was able to look and see that other people had stayed there and that they recommended it. In addition, the tour company that I use that I really recommend, El Salvador Custom Tours. These guys not only did a trip for me going up to the Cerro Verde volcano, they showed me Lago Cotopeque, they showed me some other stuff. They actually were with me and translating as I went back to La Reina, Chalatenango to visit my birth mother. These guys were awesome. I totally recommend them. If you're interested, I'll include a link to their website down below. Also mention my name, mention that Sal and this video sent you there, because I've been in contact with these guys. You know, they obviously helped me find and get in contact with my family, who I'm still also talking with. So they were a great company. Roberto, it was just a good overall vibe. I have another video showcasing some of the cool stuff that we did. In addition, when you're hiring service providers, always be sure to state your expectations up front. You know, don't go in a taxi and just say, I want to go here. Ask, how much is it going to be? Or like, what do you expect that's going to cost? Just be aware, use your street smarts, and when you're hiring people, try to seek out different reviews online. When I was in El Salvador, I was flying my drone, which is about $300, maybe a little bit more, you know, stuff I've invested in it, like new batteries and stuff. I had an $800 vlogging camera that I used. I had my laptop, which is expensive. You know, I had a lot in the way of valuables, but I never felt unsafe. You know, bringing out my camera, there were other people that had more expensive drones when I was in El Tunco. Someone had a DJI, which those can run you, like $1,000, and they were flying it. We had really nice cameras and were taking photos. So it's okay to have, I think, expensive things, as long as you're not being dumb and being flashy about it. And also, you're only using them in areas which are safe for you to travel as an American or as someone who is from a foreign country. I hope you liked this video. I hope that you got a lot out of this. If you haven't already, go and check out my video on El Salvador, where basically I go through some of the tips for traveling to El Tunco, the advice that I have for traveling to San Salvador. I'll share with you a playlist that goes through my entire trip if you are interested. And finally, if you want more videos like this, give me that thumbs up button to let first know that other people that they should watch this video, that it's worth their time, but also hit that subscribe button so that you'll get notifications when I come out with new videos. Again, my name is Sal. Hope you like this one, and I'll see you next time.